And Mheshimiwa Koech, so 35 years ago, clamor for multi-party, we have achieved it. We have more than, I think, 90 political parties today. But if you look at our governance, what we have today is broad-based government, which is many parties together, but still sort of dividing the country into just two. Those that agree with the broad-based and those that do not agree with broad-based. Is that progress in your view?
Let me just say first that Sabasaba, as was intended, had a deliberate and a clear plan of what they intended to achieve. It was for the clamor of multipartyism, and that is why you see, even in the pictures today in the front of our dailies, you can see Martin Shikuku, James Orengo, and so on and so forth. Their intention was to have President Moi agree to multipartyism. And that is why Kamkunji, like Prime Minister Raila Odinga did say yesterday, is historic, because this is where all these events will take place. The meetings will happen there, and the intention was known, and the plan was known, and they knew how to execute it. And they succeeded. They succeeded in forcing Moi to repeal the Section 2A of the Constitution at that time to allow multipartyism in this country. They further, now after that, continuously used it to agitation of different human rights and even change of the Constitution, as it were. Fast forward, we have changed, promulgated the Constitution. We have a multi-party democracy that is now in the Constitution. We have had different views from different people during the referendum of 2010 being accommodated, and have a document that speaks to the aspirations and the feelings of the Kenyan people as was desired by our forefathers and those who have left before us.
Yeah.
Sabasaba, to me, has achieved a lot. And at the same time, if we are not careful, we might be drifting from the initial intention of Sabasaba. When you hear someone like the party leader, Robert Bui, Kalonzo Musyoka, saying, asking Kenyans yesterday to come out, and demonstrate on Sabasaba for I don't know what reason, yet he was the organizing secretary of the party, KANU, at that time. The people were harassing Kenyans at that time. Kalonzo was a serious defender of the KANU state that oppressed, as they say, the people of this country. It was against them that you had Sabasaba. But today Kalonzo is coming to you, and I want to ask Kenyans that don't be too gullible to listen to people who were yesteryear's oppressors of the same constitution and now are coming to look as if they are defenders. It is only because they're on the other side. Look, for instance, at the DCP party leader, former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, a brutal enforcer of the state as a DO at that time, who will at all costs make sure that anyone who was against the KANU regime at that time was brutalized. They will not allow anyone to do what the freedom that we are enjoying today are doing. So we should not be gullible as a country. Let us see the intention of Sabasaba.
Yep.
If you asked me, Sam, today, the commemoration of Sabasaba, what is the intention of today's commemoration of Sabasaba? Why were people mobilizing yesterday to come out for today's Sabasaba? And are we going to be doing an intermittent Sabasaba? That you decide today that you will only do Sabasaba at some point in time? When was the last time we had a Sabasaba commemoration? Did we have it last year? Did we have it the year before? Did we have it in between 2013 and so on and so forth? Why is it that this thing of Sabasaba only happens at some point in time? What is the intention? What do we want that it achieves that it did not achieve at that time?
So what has informed the roadblocks?
The broad-based government has been informed by the continued dynamic and evolving political situation in the country. It is dynamism of our politics, where today yesterday's enemies become political enemies become your friends today. It is a nation that we want, where a situation where we as a nation, as brothers and sisters, are able to speak and agree on issues that we disagreed on before, and are able to move the country forward, so that we do not have a situation where as a nation we fall into anarchy. And that is why broad-based government comes in. You must remember that the father of liberation and the person who has suffered the brunt of the force of the government more than any other person that you see today is probably Raila Amolo Odinga. When he has said that he wants to speak to President William Ruto to see how we can handle the challenges of the people of this country, the young people of this country, who have a genuine concern of things that will want, that it mirrors in government and the issues that they want as a nation, we look at Raila Odinga is opening the platform and he's allowed the government now to engage with him and his team and to see a way that we can move this nation forward.
But is this about Raila Odinga? It's about Kenyans.
I am saying, you are asking me why we have broad-based government. I am saying...
Sorry, I think you misunderstood my question.
Sorry.
I asked
what did you ask us?
Why the roadblocks?
Oh, roadblocks.
Not broad.
My apologies, sorry.
Unless you're telling me roadblocks are broad-based.
They are.
Why the roadblocks?
Yeah.
Sam, today, as we speak, from 2 weeks ago, there's a mother who lost all her properties, all her business went down in the drain because of people who infiltrated a genuine, commemoration of 24th of last year.
25th.
25th, rather. People who came to loot, people who came to destroy property. Today, someone in OTC does not have a business. Someone does not have a supermarket in Thika Road because it was raided 2 weeks ago by goons masquerading as people who are agitating for commemorating what had happened last year. It is the intention of the government to make sure that life and property is protected. We have lost lives, sadly, in the process of all this agitation. Today, someone is telling you that you'll be paying rent for 31 days a month, but now there are people who've decided that you cannot show up in your business the way you will want because we are calling on demonstration.
Don't you think that someone includes the government of Kenya?
We are calling on demonstration when we want. The government is trying to provide
the government of Kenya has also stopped Kenyans from accessing places of work.
People were injured, Sam, last time. To separate, in my view, and I'm not a security expert, I'm just saying, for the government to face head-on the criminals whose intention is to harm, to maim, to kill, and to steal, then you must create a space where that avenue, where innocent Kenyans might suffer, can be, might end up being. So in creating roadblocks, it is to be able to see the crooks and separate them from people who are genuine in what they intend to do in our CBD today. In my view...
I mean, how do you tell between genuine and not genuine, really?
If you saw the videos that went online last week, Sam, it was evident. I saw a video of a group of young men on Thika Road that actually were charging against the police and went very physical with one of the police officers there. I mean, there's a team that you can tell. There are people who are armed. There are people who are working with machetes. There are people who are working with stones. There are people who are working with guns. We must be very careful so that...
And the others that work with djembe sticks.
And
they're not stopped.
And djembe sticks, yeah. So you must be very careful about all those ones that are saying to be, pro-government, and those ones that are saying are protecting their businesses, to avert a situation of chaos. And Sam, allow me to say this. And because you are my friend, I have to tell you this. As a media, you are dropping the guard. You are becoming facilitators of chaos and violence in this nation. It is taking something very small for this country to erupt because of largely the work of the media. You are not being Kenyans. Where we are as a nation today, Sam, the fear, the panic that is cutting across the people of this country who just want to earn a genuine living is palpable. I want to request you, the media, to be a bit more responsive.
Okay, tell me, how does responsibility look like? What should media do? Tell us.
Media should, and we're not saying that you have to speak to what the government wants you to speak. We're just saying, can you be fair? Can you be fair in your reporting? Can you be fair in, Sam?
Yep.
I do not want to market a newspaper here. But when you see a headline that says, don't kill our sons, what are you telling us? Who is this who is killing our people? Isn't that being very sensational of a media? The owner of this media station are the people who in yesteryears were the ones who were brutalizing the people of this nation.
So you have a problem with the headline on the Standard which says, don't kill our sons, and goes ahead.
I am not saying that. Even in your own reporting, Sam.
That's what I'm asking. Tell us, what should media houses do?
You look for the last 2-3 days, even Citizen TV itself, on your primetime news at 9 p.m. You've taken acres and acres of airspace just to show that there's a lot of agitation in this country, there's a lot of provocation in this country, there's a lot of dissatisfaction in this country.
Is there dissatisfaction in the country, Mheshimiwa Koech?
There is, but I'm saying the media is participating in making it look extremely out of order. You have not given the government space.
So let me ask you a question.
Certain issues, Sam.
Out of all the stories that you're talking about, are there stories that are not factual?
So many, Sam,
Tell me about one.
We live in this country.
Yes,
we live in this country.
Yep.
So many things are not factual. Look, for instance, the church that is going to be constructed for 1.6 billion. It is a lie. You are simply reporting what the media, what the online media. Let me tell you, Sam, information is running faster. What the media houses are reporting is simply catching up with what is being shared online. Some of the stories that you pick from online are fake. I have seen not once, not twice, but severally.
You keep moving the target.
I am not moving the target.
I just want us to close this conversation because Mheshimiwa Mbowe has been quiet for long. You're saying that there are stories that have been featured that are not factual. I have asked you the question, what is the cost of the church in State House? You don't have an answer.
I don't.
I have asked you if there's agitation in the country. You said that it's there.
I have said, Sam, so there are genuine concerns that people have raised in this country. And I am saying as well, the Citizen TV is not helping the situation as it is. Because as a responsible media,
how do you want us to help?
Media, I expect you. Why, for instance, why was there a communication last week, 2 weeks ago, on 25th, that, for instance, your media station should be shut? Was there a concern? Did it concern you as Citizen TV that probably even in our airing we might be making mistakes? We might be inciting the public. Because the media, the role of the media is to pass information and not to incite the public against the state.
Pass information, not incite. Okay, Mheshimiwa Mbowe, tell me, 35 years later, are you making progress or you just mark timing or even getting worse?
The more things change, the more they remain the same. Because if you remember the clamor for multipartyism, wanted, to come out of that, big man syndrome, where the president was the colossus and controlling everything. Years later, it still seems to be the same. We were fighting about human rights. Remember, the victims of police brutality like Timothy Njoya, who was being beaten, brutalized, in the streets of Nairobi. Again, that is still happening. If anything, it's even at a bigger scale. So basically, I think we have a major problem. Honorable Koech has just mentioned my party leader, that he was organizing secretary of KANU. At that time, it was only the only party in the country. So it would be important that you attribute specific things to him in the dockets that he held, because he was foreign affairs minister. Kenya's foreign policy was one of the best ever. I mean, right now we almost have none. But then your party leader your party leader was Secretary General, I think, of Young Youth for KANU 92.
He was not Secretary General.
But he was one of the big fish.
He was not even a big fish.
He was a big fish.
Just a member
the chairman of YK92, who is Cyrus Jirongo, told us about him. So he can't run away. So everybody was in KANU then, even including Raila Amolo Odinga was, at one time also in KANU. So basically at that time, KANU, they say, was Baba na Mama. So if you attribute anybody who was in KANU as being negative, I think all of us basically end up being a problem. So let's talk about what's going on in the country. There is serious dissatisfaction, and that's what I think Honorable Koech didn't want to address. The youth of this country and the citizens of the country are unhappy. We feel that the country is going in the wrong direction. One, because of the fake promises given during campaigns, and right now, because even the lies continue. You know, why I think Sabasaba this year has become expounded again is because if you remember last year we had issues in June. And then the president himself gave some very serious promises about the problems that were being raised by the youth. He said, well, we'll deal with the issue of opulence. He said, for example, so that people don't show that they have so much money when others are even unemployed, we will stop any public harambes. Harambes are being done in every constituency now for empowerment, you know, like never before. So everything he said was basically hot air. He said that he's going to compensate the victims that were those who lost those who got injured would be compensated. Those who lost their lives would be compensated. It's a year down the road, nothing has happened. He also said that he is compensating those who lost their properties. And in fact, on that one, he said it is going to be done within 30 days. Again, nothing has been done. So basically, I think the reality is that the Kenyans are getting to that point where we are wondering, what kind of leadership is this that can never keep their word? And that's why the anger is growing. And let me tell you, you saw some SGR train, everybody was shouting one time. They went for, yesterday there was this marathon. I was shocked. I mean, I was asking myself, I even said in the parliamentary group, and he can confirm, I said people must decide whether they want to go for marathon and be quiet or go to political parties and shout one time, because that's what was happening. They are shouting one time throughout. So the truth is, there is a problem that the country is facing. But now the attacks on media are unfair. The attacks on media are unfair. In fact, you know, it just tells us that the leadership of Kenya Kwanza, the president was totally opposed to. He's led the onslaught against the Constitution 2010. And I think he cannot believe in the Bill of Rights. Because he even though he swore that he would uphold the Constitution, he opposed the promulgation of this Constitution. And that's why things like media freedoms, he doesn't understand them and he doesn't respect them. How do you just pull the plug and switch off signals of three main TV stations, and then you say, oh, it's because there's a lot of violence. The media houses are not creating violence. They're only reporting. The purpose of media houses is to report. And some have asked him a very good question. Is there anything that you've reported which is not true? He cannot answer because he wants to muzzle the media. That is the reality. The freedom of press that is enshrined in our Constitution is what they are afraid of. They don't want people to know what's going on. When they switched off the media on June 25th, I think that was a time when attacks were being done on some of those installations downtown. So the media was not able to report and show who is doing the attacks. But I want to say that at the end of the day, we all have to be responsible. And my opinion is that even as we do demonstrations, let us be peaceful. That is my opinion. We have to be peaceful. Attacks on police are totally a cake. Attacks on people's personal properties or government properties is also wrong. But then, unfortunately, the question is, who exactly is doing this? The people that have the ability to tell us who is doing this and who have the ability to investigate and arrest, they keep playing politics, you know? Arresting some young man, taking him to court, the court releases him, they go and arrest him and call him a terrorist. How do you call a young man a terrorist because he participated in a demo? I mean, that's a problem that we are facing as a country, and that's why the anger is increasing day by day.
Okay. And Mheshimiwa Koech, a lot of feedback is coming to us, some saying that the freedom of assembly is in Article 37, not in the mercy of a police boss. Every roadblock set up to stop Sabasaba is a checkpoint on the road to tyranny. We didn't fight for this constitution so it could gather dust in court shelves. As someone else is saying, let me find this. If a newspaper headline reads, "Don't kill our sons," that's not bias, it's plain. The media is imperfect, but today it spoke truth to power. Maybe instead of shouting over journalists, our leaders should try listening. The streets don't lie. And of course, a lot of feedback also coming in about the conversation we had earlier on. State House is Kenya's seat of power, and Article 8 of the Constitution declares the state secular. Building a church there raises concerns about religious neutrality and inclusion for Muslims, Hindus, Catholics, and atheists who also work there. Sabasaba wasn't just a date, it was a cry for justice, freedom and multi-party democracy. 34 years later, actually 35, Kenyans still march, not for, 34, if it's about multi-party democracy, not for parties, but for dignity, truth and accountability. That's Okto Kama writing to us. Then someone else, roadblocks everywhere on your way to CBD. This is Anthony. Anthony is Machora, sharing images of what you'll find on the streets. People unable to make their way to their respective places of work. Remy Butia, you're saying, a better approach on NGCDF and GAV might be constitutional recognition of devolved funding principles, that is equity participation, while leaving implementation details to legislation. So a lot of feedback coming to us about what's happening this morning. Mheshimiwa Koech, so what is the long-term strategy to deal with the challenges the country faces today?
Before I do that, this is I'll share with you a picture. This is Kalonzo Musyoka in 1990.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to correct some, Robert, for saying that which specific one did Kalonzo, because he was then in the only party, it was KANU. And Kalonzo introduced a motion to ban Nation newspaper from reporting house business in 1990. And then you're telling me anything about Kalonzo, about media, and about him being a reformer? Sam.
The beauty is that we now have a new constitution. Article 34.
Precisely.
Article 34 protects the freedom of the media.
I allow you that. That's why I'm here today.
Article 32, Article 35 on access to information matters, expression of opinion, including on religion or anything else. It is really protected in the Constitution and not...
but media must be responsible and fair.
Exactly.
That is also what
yes.
Media must guarantee.
Yes, there's no contest about that. Minimum.
Now, you asked me about the way forward, Sam. The way forward is that I wish I understood, because the demonstrations of 24th last year was because of the finance bill, which was shelved. That one we got sorted.
Yeah.
I understand also that there is a lot of frustration from our young people, genuine concerns about how they can, they want, many of them are educated. They want a form of employment. There are so many issues that is affecting our young people and the people of this country at large. The only way, like you rightfully say, because we have a constitution, is we have a dialogue. We know our country. It's just like a family. Everyone knows their family. You know the revenues in your family. You know what can go where. You can't live beyond what you have. Can we have an honest conversation as a country and see where there are challenges, where you think the government should improve, where we think as people's representative we should improve? And that is the only way we can address it. There is no other way. The only other way is anarchy. The only other way that many people, and I've seen, especially the former deputy president, what is agitating?
Sorry, the question is very specific. Forget about politicians for a moment.
Okay.
We have a problem in this country.
What is the problem?
There's agitation in the country.
That's what I'm saying.
There's unemployment.
Yes.
There's dissatisfaction on how the government is utilizing resources. There's public anger on how the state is dealing with that exact expression.
And I'm saying, the only way to address it is to sit. That I've given you two scenarios.
To sit?
It is either we sit and agree as a nation, as a people, that this is how we want our nation to be.
How so? What forum is that?
We can have whatever forum the people want. The young people.
No.
We tried.
You're the leaders.
We tried.
The people have come to the streets. You've blocked the streets.
We tried after Gen Z's demonstration last year. We tried town hall meetings, just to engage people and to understand their feelings. Some people turned up, some did not turn up. There are issues that they raised that as a government we should address. Some of the issues that they needed addressed, some were addressed immediately, some are progressively being addressed. But that does not mean that people can hijack a very genuine concern of certain people of this country and use it for their own political benefit. So we should be very careful, and that is why sometimes you find me drifting towards politicians who want to hijack a genuine process and a genuine concern by the Kenyan people on what we should look at. For instance, I've had people coming to me personally. I mean, I also have people employed in my relatives who are employed in the civil service who are saying, by the way, what will you do with this housing levy? Because it is really affecting our payslip. It is a genuine concern, Sam. As a country, then, how do we address it? Thinning payslip, people are earning less as compared to what they were earning before because of introduction of different levies. And I think those are genuine concerns that then we can listen to and the government should listen to. And as people's representative, we should take an initiative and say, let us listen to these concerns. But some of those are now being hijacked by politicians for their own political reasons. And that is where I'm saying we must divide the line. Because now it is very difficult. It's been blurred by genuine concerns have been blurred by people who want to agitate for their own selfish interest. And I think, Sam, even that is where, as a country, we need to decide. For instance, if you asked me today, what are the demonstrations for? I don't know.
You sit in the committee that oversees intelligence. Tell me.
People are not coming to work. People are just being scared. Someone today, some children will not go to school. A family today will sleep without food. Some of your people, so your crews, your supporting staff here in Citizen, I found a team in the morning getting here because he couldn't get to the station early enough on time to be in this show. I mean, those are the challenges that people have to go through, honestly, just because we have decided to be a nation that whimsically say that we'll have a Maandamano tomorrow or we'll have next week on Tuesday. We will lose focus. And even and I want to speak
Mheshimiwa Koech, please, don't gaslight Kenyans.
I am not.
The team you reference was unable to get to the office early because there was a roadblock on the road.
That's what I'm saying. But can we have genuine concerns? Because otherwise,
planted by the police.
If the government does not protect you, Sam, including you, the media, then we'll have a problem again.
Okay.
We will also accuse the police. And I hope, is that my last shot?
Yeah.
Have you finished with me?
I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Solution out of this.
Yeah, well, we need solutions. One of them is to stop being obsessed. Like my colleague here with my party leader and Rigathi Gachagua. In fact, they've always been shifting the goalposts. They said the other day that, it is them who are mobilizing people to go ban police stations. And I was shocked that they were able to mobilize almost 10,000 Luo youth to go and ban some station in, some place in Homa Bay, But I think the biggest concern and the biggest solution for this government is to start listening. I think if they just listen to the voices of the people, who will be healing the country. Where the brain started beating us is in 2023, and that was when they brought in their first finance bill. That is actually the one that up to now is hurting Kenyans. When they introduced all manner of tax policies within 1 year and hit everybody's payslip and hit businesses, and so that is where the problem was. And you completely have ignored that when we did public participation, Kenyans said they didn't want those hefty taxes. The conversation should have been held before and maybe introduced, even if you want to increase taxes, in a very small doses. So I think that's where the problem is. So I think we need to start listening so that we can stop this fight, because going forward, it's not a very good idea. And then stop blaming each other. Now the regime is blaming media. Media is just doing their job. I think the idea of press freedom by Kenya Kwanza regime is to report nothing of what is going on if it is negative, and only, paint a rosy picture when there is none. I think let the media tell Kenyans what the problems are, so that you get an opportunity to also counter and say your piece. Let us all be heard, but let's listen to each other. That's, I think, the bottom line.
Mheshimiwa Mbui, because you're also in leadership, last week it was very easy to bring together 304 members of the National Assembly to pass an NGCF constitutional amendment.
Yes.
Why is it not possible to rally the same, to have a sit down and have a conversation about what's happening in this country?
Let me tell you, Sam, it was also not easy to even get the numbers that you saw. It took a struggle by the leadership. But I hear you, and I think it's important that we sit together and talk to each other. But unfortunately, the amount of distrust is just too high. It requires some, I think some intervention from outside. But I do believe, in the fullness of time, we are going to sit together and talk to each other.
Where outside means what?
outside influence, not the National Assembly. I have said this, I will repeat it. National Assembly is an appendage of the executive. And so therefore, National Assembly leadership cannot call members to discuss a problem if they don't get the instructions from the executive. That is where the problem is.
That's what I'm saying. Unless you're telling me that to pass NGCF is also mobilization by the executive.
We mobilized that, and it took also a struggle. If you remember, it was supposed to have been, the vote would have been taken a week before that.
So you mobilized as
yes,
members of the
as members, yes, members mobilized each other.
And you got 304, yet you needed.
But right now, the executive controls almost 300 of the members of the National Assembly. The executive is not opposed to the NGCDF. But we'll start the conversation. I can start it with Nelson Koech here and see whether we can get somewhere. We can start that conversation of bringing our people together, because in the long run, Sam, even daily demos are not good for the country. Yeah. I mean, it will affect everyone in the long run. Even those that are trying to get employment may not be able to get jobs if the economy crashes even further. Yeah. But then we want the Kenya Kwanza regime to start listening. That's very important. They must start listening and stop, creating diversions every step of the way.
Interesting. Again, we continue to receive a lot of information. Of course, you can log into Citizen TV and find some of the latest, including major disruptions in Nairobi after police barricade all major roads in anticipation of Sabasaba protests. A lot of Kenyans reporting the same. Of course, our reporters at different places. Of course, even them being affected by the challenges of the morning to access their places of work and also to come from where they live, but you continue to make every effort to bring you the latest in as far as what's going on in the country. Again, we appreciate your feedback that has been coming to us at Citizen TV Kenya, Sam Gituku, the hashtag to use the Citizen Daybreak, and also via 22422. Someone is saying that, let me just look at this. We must close loopholes, let MPs lobby, let senators oversight. An amendment to the Constitution is overdue to safeguard county resources from misuse. This is according to Kitale's Finest. You call yourself Kiprop Kenya. Let me see who else is writing to us. While CDF addresses real gaps in service delivery, constitutional entrenchment risks ossifying a specific mechanism. I don't know what ossifying is. Do you know?
No.
Okay. A specific mechanism that might become outdated or prone to misuse. Then someone is commenting about the early conversation about the Church of State House. He can just drive less than a kilometer to the Anglican Church, surely. Maybe what we need is a prayer room at State House. CDF's goals, this is again Remy Butia. CDF goals are laudable, but constitutional entrenchment prioritizes short-term accessibility over long-term institutional integrity. Sustainability development requires adaptable systems, not rigid frameworks, to combat corruption and ensure coherence. And let me see what else. This is... Someone is accusing Mheshimiwa Koech that he was re-elected because he mastered the art of tokenism and his influence on CDF. Without the two, he would be sitting pretty at his Jamamul home. That's an unfair comment.
I would love to sit there pretty. I have no problem.
Yeah, Bobo is saying that MPs are hanging on CDF because without it, they will become irrelevant to voters, and more so, that's where they embezzle or make corrupt deals to get money for their campaigns. Mheshimiwa Mbowe, you actually agree with that?
No, I'm saying that it is true that prudent use of CDF helps members of parliament look positive. But then the part of embezzlement of CDF funds, I don't know whether Kenyans know this is the only fund where by the time the money comes from the board, it is going to a specific project and the amount is allocated and a specific amount. If it is a classroom being built, the amount is written. If it is 2 classes, it will be written 2 classes. So it's one of those funds that are so strictly looked at that it's not like county funds that the governor can decide they can spend 2 million to build a class. CDF, the amounts that are actually allocated are specified. Okay. And so it's actually, every time I hear someone says there is embezzlement, I always wonder how does it happen? Because then the member of parliament must be completely docile. Because if you know a certain school is going to get 2 classes built, then when you visit, you should ensure that you see 2 classes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's one of those.
We've seen various reports of the what is the name? Office of the Auditor General, indicating that some constituencies, including bursaries, so you don't necessarily see the list of beneficiaries. It's a bit of embezzlement right there.
Maybe some I can help with that, the issue of bursary, and the reason why it's always been actually an audit query is because we give upwards of about 10,000 recipients every year. Most constituencies will give even more, much more than that. Now, these monies, once their amounts are allocated, the checks are written to the individual institutions, and they are in their hundreds. Now, the assumption and where the problem comes in is because there is an assumption that as long as the money has been released, a receipt must go back to the CDF office. Now, how do you issue hundreds of checks to students going to schools all over the country, university students going to different campuses all over the country, and then have control of that receipt? Because the only thing that CDF has is a check. So once they issue the check and somebody signs, they expect a receipt to be brought back. It's a very, very difficult process. In fact, it would probably consume about 30% of that kitty, the total bursary kitty, to be able to actually get all the receipts back. It's a very complex situation, and that story that has been raised, but the Auditor General has constantly said, oh, we just want to see receipts as evidence. But we always say, look at the lists and where the regions where these people come from, and the checks, because copies of the checks are available to confirm that these monies were sent out. And then at the university, some I'll tell you, even University of Nairobi, for example, there will be maybe hundreds of students from my constituency. You cannot give one check for all of them, because then how do you bring them together at the campus for them to confirm they've been paid for? So you end up issuing individual checks. How do you get those students that you've given a check to bring back a receipt? So some of these audit queries are fairly okay, but they're difficult to sort out.
Okay. Yet it's Parliament that is supposed to resolve those reports.
Yes, and that's why Parliament understands when they get the reports. They are able to understand and clear some of these audit queries, because it's difficult. Sometimes we have a lot of theoretical application to some of these things, but when you look at the practicalities, when you realize the difficulty, if you are writing 2, 3, 4 checks, it's okay. But if you are writing hundreds and hundreds of checks, and then you have only one employee of the board, the fund account manager, how do you get to visit every institution and get every receipt? Some students are in Mombasa, some are in Garissa University, some are in Nairobi, and your constituency is in North Horr. How do you do that? Okay,
interesting perspective on that. Now, there's one more issue, as we wait for a few of our reporters to speak to us, one more issue that we are witnessing in our political space, Mheshimiwa Koech. And over the weekend, I think there were some politicians that were roughed up, their cars destroyed. Was it in Chwele? I think it's the team that Mheshimiwa Mbui is talking about. And then there's this campaign of one term versus 2 term. How do we manage that? Because it appears that politicians are also planning against each other.
It's a very dangerous thing, Sam. The incident in Chwele is regrettable, and it should not have happened. We must tolerate each other. We flourish with the 2010 Constitution because we are able to go to every part of this country, speak to the people, solicit for votes, and engage peacefully without the fear of being attacked purely because people do not subscribe to your beliefs. So I think that attack on Chwele was wrong, and it should not have happened, and it should not happen. We should have the freedom of every Kenyan to express themselves wherever they are. Unfortunately, however, some politicians have taken the opportunity of just reminding us of where we belong. Former Deputy President has continuously referred and made statements that attribute him to, and his people, to a section of and part of this country. When you start speaking and saying, my people, watu wa milima, you isolate the rest of the people. And at that point is when people start feeling, oh yeah, kumbe sisi si watu wa milima, and make statements that are inflammatory in nature. There's a statement that was made last week about Kiambaa Church by the former Deputy President. That was a terrible statement. It found itself in the space of the media. Like I was saying, the media must be objective and fair in their reporting.
Sorry, you think that statement should not be carried?
It's a dangerous statement. It should be carried.
Why is it dangerous?
But when you talk about, the intention of that statement was to remind a particular community, that probably they are not wanted where they are, and to always look behind their shoulder as if
what did he say?
Someone who
what did you hear him say?
He told the president, we are building a church in State House. Maybe, first of all, you should build a Kiamba church that was burnt with our people inside. With our people inside. I think that is an extremely dangerous statement.
Why?
It's pitching one community against another. And the intention is purely to speak to one part of a community to say, yeah, it's a poor way of mobilizing a community. And it's pitching a community against. I even saw another one again this weekend and, from my community saying, some of the community that are staying with us should not even be here. If you start having...
Who said that?
One member of the public from my community. If you start hearing statements of people saying, your community should not be here, my community should be here, it is dangerous. Okay. It is something that we need to be very careful.